It is the month of February, fellow streakers, and we are back with you again. I can't believe it's the next... I keep saying this on every single one. I can't believe. What can I not believe?
This month will actually go faster because there literally are only 28 days in the month.
So we know that it will go faster.
It will go faster.
Because it'll still be the same amount of time per day, but it won't be as many. It just won't be as many days in the month.
I'm excited about this month. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about.
And the reason you're excited we're going to talk about it is because
it's February.
I'm curious so we're going to talk about relationships.
We're talking about
and
relationships.
How streaking can help improve and strengthen your relationships. I mean that we just looked at it and thought, well, you go ahead.
It's Valentine's Day, and it tends to, well, in the United States it's Valentine's Day on the February 14th, so it tends to kind of make you start thinking a little bit about those relationships in your life and the people that you love. And so we thought it'd be really fun to spend this month talking about how streaking can help improve your relationships.
As we look at relationships and consider all the many relationships that we have in life. So, for example, marriage, one of the relationships that we have, children, another relationship.
Parents. Children and parents.
Yeah, so
siblings,
I guess family is, you look at it, and that could be close family or extended family.
Right.
Relationships, friends, another relationship, and work associates.
Yeah.
Would you say that's all of them, or is there a different ones? I mean, those are pretty broad categories, so we can look at a lot of different ones.
That's where I felt like my relationships those are the kind of the categories that I felt like my relationships fit into. Is those close, my closest relationship with you, and then my family, and then friends, and then kind of work associates or those people, acquaintances.
Right, acquaintances. What we thought we'd do is we are going to start today with talking about why relationships are important, or what is it about relationships and how you make them important. We're going to reference the 5 love languages. Many of you have probably read or seen that book before, and we're going to talk about Gary Chapman's work as far as the 5 love languages and how streaking can actionalize or operationalize those languages. And then, so we'll do that on this podcast as far as what is it, how can streaking improve your relationships? And then what we thought we'd do is through the month of February, we're going to take each category of relationship. So first, after this one, we'll start out with marriage, and we'll probably take a couple of podcasts on marriage. Then we'll talk about children and family, being a parent, maybe brothers and sisters, siblings and so forth. And then we'll move into friends, and finally professional relationships, and we'll reference back to Gary Chapman's work the whole time in these, as far as the 5 love languages are concerned, with the overriding emphasis really being on how streaking is able to improve, increase, strengthen any of your relationships.
Right.
Did I do that okay?
Yeah.
How does that sound?
And I thought it's interesting. Part of the reason that I am excited to talk about the 5 love languages is because of this idea and understanding that we speak different languages. Sometimes they often talk about, like in a marriage, that opposites attract, and that you're attracted to that thing that maybe you're not as great at, but that other person is fantastic at it. And so there's this...
Well, I know that's true of you. I mean, you're so great at so many things that I am not very good at.
And I feel the same way about you, that you're great at these things that I'm not as good at. And so when we come together, we create a more whole and complete situation where we look at things differently. So when you first start into marriage, and I'm just prefacing, we'll go into this deeper. But when you first start into a marriage, there's that attraction. But then sometimes those very things that you were attracted to can actually become difficult to work with. And so I love...
Are you saying that I'm difficult to work with sometimes?
No, I'm just
Yes, you are. And that's okay.
A little bit sometimes. But it's amazing to me that I loved reading about the 5 love languages and recognizing that just because I know a person well didn't necessarily mean that I totally understood how they felt loved. And even for myself, I've had to learn, how do I feel loved? Like what things happen that make me feel loved by someone?
Right.
And so I loved exploring this because the thing that has always been interesting to me, and that I wanted to talk about a little bit today, is this idea. One of the things that we love about streaking is that it brings something from the subconscious or unconscious to the conscious realm, where you're purposely choosing to make this important in your life. When people talk about relationships and you start to try and put a streak around
something to do in the relationship.
Yeah, around. So I'm going to do a streak to help me have a better relationship with my spouse. So, or let's use your example of contact at least one of my children every day. When we first started talking about that streak, there were oftentimes people that would say, you have to make that a streak? In a way that's looking at you and saying, wow.
So how come we, and what is it that sends us to that place? Because I agree with you. It's this place where if you really cared about me, if you really were, if I was really top of mind, you wouldn't have to write it down. You wouldn't have to make a conscious effort to say, this is what I need to make sure I do this. So what do you think? I mean, because I think about it myself, and it seems that would be, what's the word I'm looking for? Obvious. The obvious thing is that I would think about you. I mean, I love you. Mm-hmm. I appreciate you. And if I was really concerned about you and interested in what it was that you're doing, I wouldn't have to make it a streak.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have to write it down.
I wouldn't have to remind myself.
We talked a little bit about this with Jim Hewling in Find Your Fire. We were talking on his podcast, and we were saying something about this. I don't know if it was relationships or not, but he said that's just false. He said it's false. When you write something down is when it becomes important to you. Mm-hmm. When you make it a streak, when you make it something that you're consciously, consistently doing, that's when that's the important moment.
Yep. And I think that sometimes we think that if it's important, it'll be there and we won't have to try. That's what denotes that it's important. And it's just not the case.
You just said something that just totally cued just an insight that and the way that you just said it, it was, lost it.
This idea that if it's important, because it's important, it's there.
It's there. That was it.
We don't have to make it there. Obviously, that's the definition of important.
Stupid illusion of habit starts coming back again. I mean, the illusion that it'll become automatic to me and that I will just remember it because it's important to me.
Right. That because it's important. And I think that sometimes, like, what is the definition of importance?
So do we get embarrassed then that we have to write it down? If someone's so important to me, I get embarrassed that I actually have to write it down and make it a streak. Like, for example, one of my streaks is to contact you at least one time daily. And another one is to spend one-to-one time with you at least one time weekly. And those are two of my streaks, true?
I do. When you first set them, were you embarrassed by them at all?
I didn't tell you for a long time.
Yeah, you didn't.
I was embarrassed because I did think that. I thought, well, if I show her that I have to write this down, is she going to think, oh, really? You have to write it down.
You have to write me down to remember me.
So what is it? So that would maybe one of the things is I'm embarrassed to write it down, and therefore I don't. And what happens then? I forget.
And then what?
Right. Then I really don't care.
Exactly. So that was the thing that I wanted to really talk about today as we're beginning kind of this, I guess you could call it kind of a series on relationships, before we even started talking about how streaking could help in those relationships, I wanted to just really talk about why it's okay, not only okay, but almost communicating, it communicates definitely more that you really care about this person if you've set a streak that in some way is there to help improve that relationship.
Absolutely.
And that's what I wanted to kind of tackle at the beginning.
It takes a little while to overcome, though, the natural defenses that come up from saying, no, I don't want to write that down because I don't want someone to think that they're not important to me.
What about the other side? So they find
me.
out that you've got this streak and then you do something and you're worried they're thinking, oh, I'm just doing it because I have a streak. They don't.
So that's the other side. So in other words, the streak is what's important. It's not me that's important.
Right. So how do we fight those things? Why are those feelings there? And what's the truth about it? Where is the truth in all of this?
So the truth that I know is this. When I made that streak to contact you at least one time daily, the reason that I made it is, one, I was traveling quite a bit. Now, this is pre-COVID days. Believe it or not, I have not been on the road for 1 year. And when I say on the road, in an airplane for 1 year.
Isn't that amazing?
It is absolutely amazing. So I had set that. This was probably, I'd have to look at the streak. I don't have it right in front of me right now. But I had set that because I thought, I don't want to miss contacting her. Actually, now I remember why I said it. I had set one to contact the kids at least one time daily. Contact at least one child one time daily.
Can I ask you what inspired that streak? That was earlier on.
So that was still the same thing. I was traveling, and I could get going in my work all through the day and travel and not have one contact with one of our 7 children.
So that's an interesting thing because our children are obviously important to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say you love working, but a huge part of why you work is to provide so many things for our children and for our family.
Well, I love doing that. I provide stuff for all of us. I love our lifestyle.
Right.
And so I like to work.
So it's
I like to have food and clothing and shelter and transportation.
And work
I love all of those
that.
things. And I love to provide some extra things for the kids that they like to do. Dance and karate and all the schooling, things like that come along. I mean, so I enjoy that. However, so you bring up a good point. So I'm working and I get lost in the work, and it can be like this. Well, I do all this for you anyway. Shouldn't you know that you're important to me because that's why I'm doing this. However, without the personal contact, I think I can quickly forget why it is I'm doing these things. And also I want them to know that I think about them.
Right.
And I don't want to get so lost or compartmentalize things so much that I get lost in what it is that I'm doing. And then people don't understand why I didn't contact them.
Right.
Whereas with the kids, the reason why I set the streak is because I'm traveling a lot. I get lost in my work. I enjoy it, or I'm tired, or whatever it is, and I fall down on the bed at the end of a very busy day, and I really don't want to talk to or do anything with anyone because I've spent my words.
Right.
You know, the 25,000 words that I have been allotted for the day have been spent.
You spent 30,000. You're already in the, I'm in the negative.
I'm in the negative here.
All I can do is babble at you.
Exactly. I know. Yes. Yeah. I laugh because you're describing exactly how I feel at the end of some of the days. And then I think, okay, what are my streaks? And that is what I've done with my streaks and what they mean to me now is they all apply to who I want to be. Mm-hmm. And my B statement for fatherhood is I want to be an active, loving, fantastic father. Now, how that gets defined and how I aspire to be that person is what I do. And I figure contacting at least one child daily is one of the things I need to do. And then I upgraded the streak as well. I have a second streak, which is connect with one of our children daily.
And so,
which is a little bit different, but it's still the contact and maybe just what it is. Connect is really looking at deeply at them and connecting with them, even if it's for 10 seconds. Right. Anyway, so I set those streaks because I didn't want to move. I wanted to care. I didn't want to lose it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And as you were talking, I thought a couple of things because it's interesting that last month we were kind of talking about health and wellness and then talking about relationships this month. It's an interesting thing because we need these relationships. We talk the one we were talking about, the streak you're talking about now is a parent to child streak that you had. And you were saying, I want to be a good father. I also recognize, though, that the children speaking to you would also benefit you. Like it would fill your bucket when you've had a really long day and you're far away from home and you're fixing my sound again.
I'm sorry, but
people, can you hear this?
Go ahead.
He's tweaking my sound. I just want you to know he moved the microphone closer to me. Maybe you're all out there going, yeah, it's better. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for keeping her in line.
Go ahead.
So that was the thing that I was looking at is as we look at these relationships, recognizing that relationships is a huge part of our life. These relationships that we have, the things that we have to get done are important. You're right. We have to work. We have to find a way to provide shelter and food and then the things that we want to do in life.
Clothing's important.
Clothing's important.
Yes.
All these things that we want, that's important. We have to do that. But it's interesting to me that if our relationships are off kilter, it affects all of those things. It's very difficult to go about the other things that we have to do when these relationships in our life are off kilter, when there's something not right with them.
Right.
And so looking at this and saying, okay, these relationships are important, and understanding how they're important and how me helping to facilitate having better relationships through consciously choosing what I can do every day to improve those relationships is important.
And one of the things that, who is it again, Gary?
Yeah, Gary Chapman.
Gary Chapman. One of the things that he says in his book is that it's the consistency of the action that creates the result. It is not just knowing and understanding the love language, but it's also the consistency of actually doing the things.
Right.
And so I thought we might want to just give what the love languages are that are in there. So there's 5 of them: words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, acts of service. So he's taken and categorized the love languages, or the languages that we speak, into these 5 different categories. Now, as you look at each of these, words of affirmation: encourage, affirm, appreciate, empathize, listen actively. So you could almost take these and put them into a be statement.
Oh, that's great.
I want to be a person who encourages, affirms, appreciates, empathizes, and listens actively.
That's great. I hadn't even thought about that, how you could make the purpose of these, what these languages are, into this is the kind of person I want to be.
And looking at it and saying, if I understand your love language, then I want to be a person that is able to speak your love language.
I love that, because so we spent some time deciding, did we want to do these podcasts where we would spend one time talking about words of affirmation and we'd spend a whole podcast talking on that? Or did we want to talk about relationships, the specific relationships that we have in our life, and break it up that way? And we grappled with this back and forth. I love what you just said, because what's interesting is that when you look at the love languages in a marriage, I want to spend a lot of time understanding your particular love language. But
thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Then as we get but there's a lot of relationships we have in our life, and I love that he talks about love is, in my mind, is understanding we can love, and I want to love a lot of people.
Yeah.
That love is going to be different based on the relationship.
Right.
But that basic feeling of love for people, in my mind, is saying, you're a human being, you're a person, you deserve to be loved.
I love that, because also one of the things that I see common today is a lot of people being grouped into categories by whatever category you want to put out there.
Right.
There is all kinds of different categories.
Labels,
categories, groups. And what I see you saying, and what I appreciate, is that every person is an individual.
Yep.
And you matter.
Right.
And because you matter, I want to learn how to speak your language.
Right.
And I want to spend just a little bit of time in that. I may not be able to speak it perfectly.
Right.
I may not be able to do it really well, but gosh darn it, I'm going to give it a good try.
And so I loved, as you were reading those and saying, oh, this could be a be statement. In my mind, I thought, what you're saying is, I'm going to learn each of these languages. I'll speak it better with the people I'm closer to because I will get more practice. But as I learn to understand that different people receive things differently, I can communicate better. I can, and by communicating, I mean I can communicate love in a better, more effective way, because I'm learning different ways that people hear and accept that love.
Exactly.
And that will build those relationships.
Absolutely. So here's the rest. So words of affirmation, I read: physical touch, nonverbal, use body language and touch to express love.
So that one, as I was studying, I thought, I bet the people that's their love language have really struggled with COVID, because we are social distancing, don't touch, don't handshake, don't hug. That would be,
True.
I mean, those people.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Those people that
basically, we've cut off that language.
We've
Boom,
cut off that
gone.
language. That's
it does say here, though, just a little bit of nonverbal and use body language. So that can be one of the things that, at least over an online connection, I can see
that's true.
That your facial expressions and see some of those things, though it will not replace, nor does it, it may be just adequate for that particular love language. However, I think that's one of the reasons why there's people who will get on camera and people who won't. I'm curious if the people who get on camera easily are more
Are
physical.
more physical. They need to be able to see people.
Yes.
Yes, I could see
Interesting,
that.
huh?
Mm-hmm.
Receiving gifts. Thoughtfulness, make your spouse a priority, speak purposefully. That's interesting, receiving gifts.
This one's an interesting one too because...
Oh, and this is, by the way, under the column of how to communicate the particular love language.
Okay.
So this one is thoughtfulness. So how to communicate it, you do it thoughtfulness, make your spouse a priority, speak purposefully. And then you were going to say something.
Just the receiving gifts one of the things that communicates is you were intentional in thinking about me.
Right.
That's
Oh,
an
that's a good
interesting
point. Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I wonder if one of them would be more, if a person who is receiving gifts is more apt to say, I love that you've written down that you want to spend time with me weekly.
Yeah.
Or
maybe.
that you have a streak around that.
Keep going.
You have.
I'll try not to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Just that I guess as I was thinking about it, I'm like, I guess each of these languages is basically saying, I want you to be intentional about thinking about me.
Yeah. And that's what streaking is all about.
That's what I wanted to communicate, is that streaking is being intentional. So setting a streak and receiving that maybe your spouse set a streak around you will help your relationship. Being able to accept that by setting a streak, you've said, I am going to intentionally think about you or do something for you every day, every week.
The show's almost over, and you had said that you're worried that we're going to run out of stuff
I know,
to say.
I was a little worried. I'm like, what if we don't have enough to say?
I don't think so. Quality time, uninterrupted and focused conversations. One-to-one time is critical. Acts of service. Use action phrases like, I'll help. They want to know you're with them, partnered with them. So that's all the ways how to communicate. What's interesting is the next column over in this particular infographic talks about actions to take. Now, what I see is the actions to take is just the reason why you say how you communicate it, actions to take. Who do I want to be? And what do I need to do to become that person? And I'd even say, what do I need to do consistently to be or to speak that language?
So what you're saying is that this love language chart that you have right here, which is the language, how to communicate it, and the actions to take, is who I want to be and how I'm going to get there.
Yep. That's exactly right.
It's a streak.
So
it can help you.
It can help you. It can help us all. I'm excited to talk about it. So next time we'll talk about streaks in marriage.
Yep.
And we talked a little bit about ours, but we'll go deep. We've got a lot of streakers that have given us information about how they've set streaks in their marriage that have really helped them. Really fun one that I want to talk about too is what the one streak about.
We'll talk about it next time.
I know we will. All right. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Jeff. That's Jamie. You can reach us at Jeffrey, Jeffery, at streakingmastery.com or
JAMI at streakingmastery.com.
Until we talk again,
Keep streaking.
Keep streaking.
Do one push up, become a better you. It's the small and simple things that make you grow into what you're hoping